don't let anyone tell you there's no important international football happening this summer, because even if they try to tell you, they're lying. This summer, we're all being blessed with the beauty that is Concacaf football with the 2025 Copa Oro. For those who aren't aware, Copa Oro is Concacaf's marquee international tournament. It's our Euros, it's our Copa America. A lot of people sleep on Concacaf or even consider it the worst when it comes to international federations, but in my opinion, the quality of the region has gotten a bit better over the last few years. For those who remember, Costa Rica literally made the quarterfinals of the 2014 World Cup after pushing the Netherlands to penalties, and this was after topping their group with England, Italy, and Uruguay. Of course, I'd be lying to you if I said that Concacaf was producing up-and-coming world-class elite talents, because that's just not true. But still, there's some quality in there, but it's being slept on. And above all else, the games are just entertaining. Isn't that why we watch football at the end of the day? For entertainment. And in case you weren't aware of how it operates, this year we have 16 total teams participating in the tournament, with 8 of those earning qualification through the Nations League, 7 of those winning extra qualification matches, and then Saudi Arabia, who was simply invited to participate in the tournament. And now all of this begs the most important question: what should you expect from this tournament? We're not doing a full prediction where I say who's gonna top each group, but instead let's see how each team got here and how they might do. And real quick, boys, if you're enjoying the video, enjoying the channel, enjoying the content, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. We are dropping weekly football videos as well, so make sure you hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss an upload. And if you're not new to the channel, boys, welcome back. Glad to have you on for the video. Make sure you guys let me know your thoughts on Copa Oro and what you see happening this tournament in the comments down below. For my Latinos in the US who are deciding to protest, please be safe. If you or anyone you know is detained by ICE, I will leave some resources in the description of this video. Make sure you check them out if you do need to. With that being said, boys, let's get into what we could expect from these teams in Copa Oro. Mexico's coming into this tournament, of course, with the usual expectation to win the whole thing. But despite this, we aren't going into the competition in the healthiest state, as the federation over the last decade has been going through its issues, and this has heavily affected the national team. In fact, I made a video about it last year, which is actually the most successful video on my channel so far, so if you haven't given it a watch, I highly recommend you do so. More or less, some of the main issues that I talked about in that video have really stayed the same up till just a couple of months ago, which is a shame because this tournament, along with the Nations League and friendlies, is all we have to get ready for the World Cup since we're already qualified. With the squad, it still doesn't really feel like there's a cohesiveness when it comes to how the team plays. This was on full display to the world in the pathetic run that we had in Copa America, where 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss let us get bounced out of the group stage. The only saving grace of this being that it at least led us to sack Jimmy Lozano and bring back one of our most successful coaches in Javier Aguirre. With Aguirre, he's at least been trying to push this team more as he set up friendlies with bigger names. And this is very important because we went from having friendlies with the likes of Uzbekistan, then no disrespect to Uzbekistan, but now we have friendlies against Turkey and Switzerland, and win or lose, these games are a lot more important to the development of this team and how we play against those bigger countries. We did win Concacaf Nations League, which did allow us entry into Copa Oro, which does give us a sense of optimism, and Aguirre was finally able to find space for both Jimenezes to get on the pitch together, which is also a good sign for the future. A lot of times over the last couple of years, we've really been suppressing our best players and leaving a lot of our best talent on the pitch or at home, but Aguirre is actually trying to get the most out of his team and using the stars he has at his disposal. I'm still not fully sold on the 3 because recent performances against Turkey and Switzerland left a lot to be desired, but I do think we're in a slightly better position than we were in last summer. I do think these tune-ups in preparation will at least give Mexico a good chance in their group. Guys like El Piojo Alvarado, Alexis Vega, El Chino Huerta, and Marcelo Ruiz are going to need to really step up should we expect any success. As I mentioned earlier, Costa Rica in the 2014 World Cup was able to shock the world and showcase that Concacaf had the potential to go up there with the best of them. But it has not been smooth sailing for the Ticos since, and more relevantly have found themselves struggling over these last couple of years. What hasn't helped Costa Rica is the fact that their golden generation with the likes of Joel Campbell, Brian Ruiz, Cristian Bolanos, Keylor Navas have almost all but aged out, which meant that they needed a solid new generation to carry them forward. And over these last couple of years, they've been very up and down. In the 2021 Copa Oro, Costa Rica would top their group where they were the clear favorites, but then suffered a quarterfinal loss to the team that was replacing them in those conversations for the best teams in CONCACAF, Canada. They'd get grouped in the 22-23 Nations League, they'd come second in the groups for the 2023 Copa Oro, and then lose again in the quarterfinals. They got demolished in the quarterfinals of the 23-24 Nations League, and then lost a little bit more respectfully in the quarterfinals once again in the 24-25 Nations League. To make it into the Copa Oro this time around, Costa Rica had to get past the final qualification stage where a two-legged tie against Belize awaited them. And in an act of pure built-up frustration, they would absolutely demolish Belize 13-1 on aggregate. Again, if all else fails, CONCACAF is at least entertaining. With this, there's some hope that Los Ticos can make a push and finally break into the semifinals. They still have Navas and Francisco Calvo as leader figures and key young players in midfielder Kenneth Vargas, whose nickname is actually Huevito, that is currently playing for Hearts Sharks in Scotland, 20-year-old winger Warren Madrigal, and 23-year-old striker Manfred Ugalde, who could contribute to the success of the team. Costa Rica has always displayed a fighting spirit, and even though things aren't as good as they've been in the past for Los Ticos, they'll make the most out of the opportunities that they have. The 17th ranked country in Concacaf, Suriname, has the potential to be an upset in their group. Should things go their way, it's possible for them to potentially finish in place to make the quarterfinals. The country that's actually attached to the South American mainland has done a good job in recent years of propelling themselves forward a bit in Concacaf space, and thus have managed to see some results. With the rise of key players in different positions like Kenneth Pal, Emmanuel Ferrai, Ierano Kirk, and most importantly Geraldo Becker, Suriname was able to gain promotion from Division B to Division A in the 2020 Concacaf Nations League, where they have been since. Recent success has found Suriname at the top of their group for their current stage of World Cup qualifiers, with an undefeated record and already punching their ticket to the next phase. Clearly, Suriname has been able to find success as of late in Concacaf, and they're going to want to keep this going. They'll be eyeing those matches against Costa Rica and the next team we're talking about as an opportunity to get points. The Dominican Republic is known for a couple of things: chata, beautiful landscapes, baseball, New Yorkers, Phantom, but not football. With that being said, the island country is making its Copa Oro debut this time around. For the DR, their journey to this competition was paved through their success in Division B of the Concacaf Nations League, where they would go on a very impressive run. They would end up topping their group while also going undefeated. It doesn't really matter exactly what the competition is. If you're going into a setting where your competition directly is other teams that are matched at your same skill level and you're coming out of that untouched with a plus 23 goal difference to boast, you have to be doing something right. In this run, players like Dorny Romero would be very influential, as he would lead the scoring in the competition with 10 goals, and even then the DR had Heinz Morcel sitting on 5 goals, Ronaldo Vasquez on 3 goals, and also Junior Firpo on 3 goals. Yes, that's right, Junior Firpo from Leeds decided to change his nationality and represent the Dominican Republic, which helped them drastically, as you can see from how few goals they conceded. The DR also has Mariano to call up, which could be good in any success the team has. It's going to be a very tall task for the Dominican Republic, but of course you're going to come into this competition with the dream of making a solid run. Canada is a very interesting team because from a personnel standpoint, they have a lot of quality players. Alphonso Davies over the last couple of years has been in the conversations for one of the top left backs in the world. Jonathan David has become a very respectable striker in Ligue 1 and has been looking for a bigger challenge for some time now. Tayon Buchanan heavily impressed at Brugge and has made his way to Inter Milan and Villarreal, and overall Canada has many good role players who are very capable of making magic happen. And after seemingly wasting a Canadian golden generation in the 2010s, the Canucks were not going to let another opportunity slip, and as a result have thrust themselves into the top 3 conversation for Concacaf teams. They were able to achieve World Cup qualification for the first time in 36 years. They've consistently made the quarterfinals of Copa Oro since 2017, even making the semis in 2021, were runner-ups in the 2023 Nation League's final, and semi-finalists again in the 24-25 Nations League, which is where they earned their spot for this competition. But despite the success, it has not been without its faults. In these last few years, it does sort of feel like the Canadian national team has stagnated, as they haven't translated their phenomenal turnaround into any tangible success. And with the World Cup looming, and this being one of their last opportunities to really get ready, Canada need to perform. On top of that, the style of play has always been a question for Canada, as whenever they actually need to show up, it feels like they drastically underperform, this being very evident at the World Cup, where they would go winless in 3. Canada will need manager Jesse Marsch to be at his best to motivate the squad to make another final and to try and get over the line this time around. Honduras in Concacaf competitions is always one that's difficult to play against off their determination alone. It's hard to find a match from Los Catrachos where they aren't giving it their all despite who their opponent is. But with that being said, now for some time it does kind of feel like Honduras is on this kind of yo-yo motion with no success really following their way. Despite having good names in the squad like Luis Palma, Jorge Benguche, and veteran Brian Acosta, they can never build on any momentum that they have. For example, since 2015, they've been alternating in Copa Oro between group stage exits or quarterfinal exits. In the Nations League, since its inception, they managed to get 3rd place their first go around, but have not gotten any further than the group stages since. In order to even qualify for Copa Oro this time around, they had to play in the final qualification knockout match, where luckily for them, they did manage to get past Bermuda 7-3 on aggregate. For Los Catrachos, their biggest source of belief for this tournament is going to have to come from the fact that just like Suriname, they find themselves undefeated in the World Cup qualifiers and already into the next phase. From here, the hope has to be that they can finally build some steam and try to return to the final 4 of this competition. El Salvador in the 2000s and the 2010s were a force in Concacaf who were always ready to at least bring a big match to the big teams. I will say even to this day, playing at El Cuscatlán is a very tough feat for most teams to go and get a result. But unfortunately for La Selecta, they have struggled a lot over the last decade for a couple of reasons. Firstly, a match fixing scandal 2013 cost many of El Salvador's main stars to receive bans. Players like Ramon Sanchez, Cristian Castillo, and most importantly Rodolfo Zelaya, amongst many others, would phase out of the team during this period, and it resulted in a huge drop-off in quality. Secondly, the quality of El Salvador's league fell off a cliff. Issues of corruption plagued the league, teams were bleeding money, and fans were not interested, which all culminated in a large crop of players for El Salvador really just not being very good. But in recent years, you have seen a little bit of a turnaround, at least from the players' perspective. Veterans like Brian Tamacas, Darwin Seren, and Nelson Bonilla have reintroduced themselves to the squad alongside Alexander Larrin, who are doing their best to create a more organized environment for the young players. And now we've seen through El Salvador finishing first in their Division B Nations League group to earn promotion to Division A, how important this has been. LAFC's Norton Ordaz is the shining light for El Salvador, as he's going to be key in any success they have in the competition. It won't be very easy for them as a whole. They've struggled a lot over these last couple of years, so playing against bigger teams might be a big ask for them. But all it takes is a good game against Honduras and against the next team on the list for them to potentially see their way through. Either nation of Curaçao is going to hope to repeat the success that they found in the 2019 Copa Oro and return to the quarterfinals. After withdrawing from the Copa Oro in 2021 due to an excess amount of positive Mexican beer testings and not qualifying for the 2023 edition, this is their chance to build on recent momentum that they found. In the Nations League Division B, they would go top of their group to punch their ticket to Copa Oro and manage to score 15 goals in the process. Additionally, they have also found themselves undefeated in the World Cup qualifiers, where not only are they undefeated, but they have only conceded one goal, and that was in a game that they won 4-1. Juninho Bacuna has been instrumental in the success for Curaçao, as he has been racking up goals for fun. Should Curaçao find any success in games against, let's say, El Salvador and Honduras, there's almost a guarantee that he's going to be in the end of it. Panama's 100% going to be favorites for their group, and over the last couple of years, they have earned that right. If I best had to describe this Panamanian team over the last couple of years, I'd say they're the closest that we have to Arteta's Arsenal and Concacaf at a national team level. In their two most recent important competitions, they finished second place, so there's already a box tick. Aside from that, they're a side that know when to set up with a solid defense, but also when to switch it up and let the goals flow. In the 2023 Copa Oro, Panama would top and go undefeated in their group. They then knock out Qatar in the quarterfinals, the United States in penalties in the semis, before falling to Mexico in the final. In a very similar path, the 24-25 Nations League would see them get a bye straight to the quarterfinals due to their Concacaf rank, where they would match up against the US and once again sent them packing home, this time 1-0 in an empty stadium. Unfortunately for Panama, they'd suffer the same fate as Copa Oro, where Mexico would come out as winners by 1 goal. In the World Cup qualifiers, they've already earned a place in the next phase by going undefeated in this round so far, again showing their dominance in the region. The rise of players like Adalberto Carrasquilla, Jose Cordoba, and Carlos Harvey as key pillars of their defensive structures helped them so much when it comes to remaining competitive in these competitions. Generally across the squad, guys like Roberto Fajardo, Anibal Godoy, and Orlando Mosquera really solidified this team into one that many should expect to be back in the semi-final conversations. Panama realistically has the grit to surpass Canada in those, kind of top 3 conversations. If they really lock in, they could do it. They've been getting the better of the US over the last couple of years, so who's to say it doesn't happen again? The Reggae Boys are going to be trying their absolute best to finally prove to the rest of CONCACAF that they can get a cohesive squad together. For some time, Jamaica would see some relative success, as in the 2015 and 2017 editions of the competition, they would actually make back-to-back finals, but they would go on to lose those 2 finals. And then in 2019, with the integration of young star Leon Bailey, there was hope that they could hopefully make a 3rd one in a row, but this time around they will lose in the semifinals. And it would be around this time that the wheels kind of started to fall off for the Jamaican Federation. In what felt like a good move at the time, Jamaica pushed hard to get dual nationals to come play for Jamaica instead of England, and they did just that. Andre Gray, Mason Holgate, Isaac Hayden, Bobby Cordova-Reid, Mikel Antonio, and the infamous Ravel Morrison would all make the change from England to Jamaica. But what Jamaica did not account for was how much this would disrupt things for them internally. For a few years, players within the Jamaican camp would be beefing with each other, as players who had spent so many years servicing the national team felt that the new arrivals were being treated entirely differently and that their attitudes stank. Nonetheless, Jamaica would tinker with the squad throughout the years, as they have tried to find the right balance, and they haven't been as consistent as they were in that earlier period. Quarterfinal exit from the 2021 Copa Oro, a semi-final exit from the 2023 edition, and 3rd in the Nations Leagues is where they have been capped at. They're having a good qualifying spell for the World Cup, so if they can at least ride this momentum, they could return to the finals for the first time in 8 years. They did also have to get through the extra round of qualifiers to make it to the Copa Oro in the first place, so they're going to hope that the team finally shows the fight that they really need to get through. Really, they're going to need big showings from Andre Gray, Leon Bailey, and Ravel Morrison, if that's possible. For Los Chapines, they're going to hope to finally make a jump from mediocre team in CONCACAF that kind of just is always around to a team that can start to establish itself as one that consistently make it deep in the competition. Guatemala has had some good players in the past, like El Pescadito Ruiz, who was always able to rip one past CONCACAF opposition, but more often than not, the rest of the squads were just not up to it. What reflects this surprises really is how since 2000, Guatemala has been eliminated in the group stage 6 times, did not qualify twice, and got knocked out of the quarterfinals twice as well. Oh, and in 2016, they received a massive suspension from FIFA for 2 years, which really set these guys back, with them only really now starting to kind of bounce back from that. When the 24-25 Nations League, they were in Division A, and they did finish in 3rd place in the group stages, only missing out on goal difference, which of course is a disappointment, but given that the year before they were in Division B, this was not too bad. This would then put them into the extra qualifier for Copa Oro, where they would just about get past Guyana in the second leg, thanks to a late goal from El Kuki Eric Lemus. In the World Cup qualifiers, Guatemala has been on fire as they have secured themselves a spot in the final phase. Like I said, it took some time for Guatemala to bounce back after the suspension, but it feels like there's finally just some hope starting to build for Guatemala. Rubio Rubin, Oscar Castellanos, and Nicolas Haigan have been very important for Los Chapines in qualifiers, and if they have a good tournament, who's to say Guatemala don't make a sneaky push into the quarterfinal. Relative to the group, Guadeloupe probably have the hardest run if we're being honest, and their track record on the competition is definitely going to be a reflection of this as well, since they have gotten grouped in their last 2 times out. They have had a very poor run in the Nations League, and as a result find themselves relegated to Division B. And fun fact, because Guadeloupe is still considered a part of France, they actually aren't a member of FIFA and are not even in World Cup qualifiers, so they can't play those important matches to get ready for this competition. At least they have the motivation that they did beat Nicaragua in those extra qualifiers for Copa Oro, so they have a little bit of momentum to ride there. It's going to be a very tough task for these guys to get out of the group stage, but if players like Thierry Ambrose, Roussillon, Matias Faiton, and Anthony Baron step up, then maybe it won't go as bad as it could for the nation. Long story short, these guys are probably good. So the boys in blue, arguably the only team under as much pressure to win this tournament as Mexico. Just like their co-host Mexico and Canada, this is the United States' last opportunity to get ready for the World Cup in what's considered a competitive stage. And in what's been a very turbulent decade, it has definitely felt over the last couple of years that the US was finally on to something. They did miss the World Cup in 2018, but through sheer determination did bounce back and at least make it to the round of 16 of the World Cup in 2022. Over these last few years, the US has been able to export a lot more top talents to Europe, and with this there was a belief that they were finally turning the tides in Concacaf. And what really helped us as well was that domestically they were starting to dethrone Mexico. In 2021 and in 2017 they would win the Copa Oro. In 2021, 22 and 24 they were the Nations League champions, and they have beaten Mexico more times than Mexico has beaten them over these last couple of years. Literally, for the US, without looking too deep into it, if you were ignoring some other aspects, it felt like they were finally on top and there was nothing that was going to stop them. But then things started to go sour. The displays of football from the US men's national team was just absolutely pathetic, and fans were starting to have enough. Halter was clearly starting to just be way too out of his depth for the players that he had at his disposal. What did not help this was the very poor Copa America that the US did have, where it felt like they got really embarrassed and they got bounced out of the group stage, notably with the team heavily relying on other factors to see their way through. Halter was let go, Pochettino came in, and now there is this big hope of optimism within the camp. And then you have things like Pulisic not wanting to play Copa Oro, which has just made everything even more dramatic. Many key players are not playing the tournament for the US, and the US really need to win this tournament in my opinion. Both Mexico and the US, and I guess Canada for financial reasons probably, need to win this tournament, but the US out of those 3 is probably looking the least likely. I'm not saying they're not going to win it, there's absolutely a chance they can and they might actually do it, but if I had to put money on it, I don't see them doing it. I think there's just too much going on in the US camp right now. It's a mess. Haiti don't have the best record in the Copa Oro with 2 recent group stage exits. If they did need something positive to pull from, they do have the fact that in the Nations League and in qualifiers they have been very good. In the Nations League they did finish 1st place in their Division B group, where they went undefeated and scored 29 goals and only conceded 5. Wilkins Nasson and Franci Periol lit it up with 9 and 7 goals respectively. In the World Cup qualifiers, they're currently in 2nd place, tied on points with a +8 goal difference. Another competition where Nazon and Periol just keep on scoring. Haiti's best bet in this competition is for those 2 to just keep getting goals against the other 2 teams we're going to talk about, so they can at least finish 2nd. Maybe if they get a good result against the US, come out on top of the group. It's going to be harder for the defense to stay as solid against better opposition, but best bet, keep scoring goals. Trinidad and Tobago haven't been the best over these last couple of years. Notably, they did prevent the US from making the World Cup in 2018, but for themselves it hasn't been that good. They did manage to finish in 4th place in the Nations League to earn a spot in the extra qualifier. In the extra qualifier, they did at least smack Cuba 6-1 on aggregate, but again, to kind of go back to the not impressive parts, in the qualifiers they have not been great. They're currently 2nd place, but they have the chance to still not go through if they they lose their next match. In the qualifiers, they have been scoring a lot of goals, but still have not been great defensively. And in a competition where the level of attack just gets so much better, that's a big risk for them. They need to really lock in if they do want to push into the quarterfinals. Really, they need to stop leaking goals, and they need to hope that Kevin Molino and Dante Sealy can get firing. If not, it's looking tougher. And finally, we have Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's path to this tournament, they got invited. That's pretty much what it is. They're going to be looking to make up for the disappointing end to their last World Cup. After they beat Argentina, it just got progressively worse for them. The squad surely will have benefited from the Saudi League makeover, as many of these domestic players' teammates got way better. Players like Salim Al-Dosari, Mohamed Kano all need to produce in order for this team to get through. A lot of people are going to sleep on Saudi Arabia. They probably have a very good chance of progressing into the next stage, if we're being honest, but kind of one of the biggest drawbacks for them is that they have been very hit or miss in the Asian qualifiers. They've lost to Indonesia, they've lost to Jordan, and those kind of losses really showcase the drawbacks of this team, not being able to score goals against weaker opposition, and also generally just conceding sloppy goals. It's hard to really fully read these guys because of how inconsistent they've been. Given the level of the group though, there's a chance they go through, but after that, I don't know what's really the plan for Saudi Arabia in this tournament. But really, all I know is that I just want to see some exciting football. It might not be the best quality like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but at least let us see some drama, some entertainment, because that's again what we watch football for.